government. I didn't write this, Thomas Jefferson did. Feel free to give me credit, though, if you want to. A wise and frugal government, which shall leave men free to regulate their own pursuit of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned. This is a sum of good government. This summarizes what a narcissist administration is all about. Jefferson didn't need as many words as me. But since he's dead and I'm not, I wouldn't trade places with him right now. Yes, ma'am.
I just heard on Fox today, and I've been out of town, so I haven't been watching it the last 4 days, but I just heard there's a huge documentary just came out about the school systems. And it's supposed to really uncover some BS that's in our school systems. They heavily suggest that we all go see it. It's coming to a theater near you, I guess. Do you know what this is about? Is this what you endorse? Just kind of put it all.
It's called Waiting for Superman.
I'm trying to put it all together.
Right now I'm resisting the temptation to run back and get my sketch pad and dry erase markers. I usually carry a whiteboard, but I started carrying those for. I do an exercise when I talk about education. Two very simple ones. The first one, I use the state's website where it shows where we spend $8,500 per pupil in our very smallest school districts. And if we have 15 kids in a class at $8,500 per pupil, that's $127,500, and it's in 2006 dollars. And then the state lists teachers as making about $40,000 in that size district in 2009 dollars. Now I don't know why they don't use the same years, but I have my suspicions. So I asked, where did the other $87,500 go? And a Mahaska County supervisor said to me, well, my wife had 25 kids in the class. I said, I had $85,000 too. Where's the other $172,000 gone? Now, while people think about that one, I use the second exercise. Now, our classes in Iowa pretty much are generating at least $250,000 per class. So that's the first constant, the $250,000. And the second constant is Mrs. Robinson. The school board says she's a great teacher. The superintendent says she's a great teacher. The principal says she's a great teacher. Parents love her, kids love her. Under the current system, the district takes $200,000 or 80% off the top, sends her $50,000, and she has to buy supplies, and they ask parents to send dry erase markers and tissues and construction paper to class. Under the current system. Now, and you're about to find out why the ISEA called me the greatest threat to public education in Iowa's history, because I use this thing called a calculator. But I have a big calculator because I've discovered politicians don't think the little ones work. So under our proposal, which is parents decide who educates the kid and the money follows, Mrs. Robinson could compete directly against her district for the money. Now, if Miss Robinson were allowed to compete, this is what she might do with that same $250,000. She might pay herself $100,000. Someone else $80,000. Rent space. When I did my education proposal, when I released it, I did it at this place called Culture Inc. It's in a strip mall. When you walk in, they have art space and computer labs, and it's 5 times as big as the average classroom, and it costs about $1,500 a month. And so, for about $20,000, you could rent a space like that and quintuple the space in the classroom. And she could buy a laptop for every kid in the classroom, because we all want our kids to have technology. And she could even pay about 10% for administration, which means that she and other teachers could literally hire back the same administrators. And she'd still have $10,000, $15,000 left over to buy supplies. Now, why isn't the second system, which still has Mrs. Robinson, still teaching the same kids, still has the same administrators, better? Not that they shouldn't be fired, but I'm willing I'm willing to keep everything basically the same, except instead of letting them steal $200,000 off the top, we actually spend it on the kids. We've cut the size of the class in half. We've doubled the teacher pay. We still have the same administration in place. We have technology, we have much more space, and she can buy supplies or take them on field trips, and we haven't spent 1 penny more. Now, when Jeff Jeff interviewed me. He asked a question about the property taxes. And I said, Jeff, let's assume we don't go to my system where we start paying teachers really strong competitive pay. But let's assume we keep teacher pay at the same level. Then when you have 20 kids, 25 kids in a class, generating $6,500 a piece in state aid, and that's in excess of $160,000 in the classroom. Why do you need a penny of property taxes to pay for education? Why do you need a penny of federal money to pay for education? Because you're only paying the teacher $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Even in a classroom of 20 kids.
That $6,500 is coming from somewhere other than property taxes?
That's coming just from the state.
Where is that coming from? Retail tax?
The sales tax, the income tax. The point is that $6,500 is coming from the state per pupil. If you have 20 kids in a class, why do they even need a property tax when they're paying teachers $40,000 or $50,000 and have six-figure salary working for the ISEA, agreeing to lock teachers into 4% raises? Now, under our system, teachers can make six figures, but bad teachers get fired by parents. Because if a parent doesn't like a teacher, they move the kid, and the teacher, if enough kids get moved, gets fired. It's a real simple system. It's the ultimate meritocracy. If you're a great teacher, you get compensated. If you're a terrible teacher, you get fired by the parents. You don't have politicians or bureaucrats who even get to weigh in that decision. And guess what? Teachers can fire some parents too. Say, you know, little Johnny's a handful. But I'm sure somebody else would love that $10,000 to go along with them. Okay. So since he can't act right in the class, you need to find someone else to teach him. Now, of course, you don't need a union under that system because now teachers are real professionals who get compensated for their excellence and fired for their mediocrity. Yes, ma'am.
Usually, the reason that on here that they pass bond issues for the school is for infrastructure and construction, which I guess is really expensive.
That doesn't count that $6,500, but you know, if you look at school construction and you look at, you know, at some point people have to start asking the question, why? You know, maybe we ought to bring a bunch of 3-year-olds to school board meetings so they can just keep asking why? Why is it that schools can't be Wi-Fi and 500-year-old buildings in Europe are? Why is it that our schools can't figure out how to be air conditioned, but every place else on the planet is? Well, including the place where the administrators work. The Des Moines School Board Administration used to be located in the Cassidy Elementary School. They were air conditioned. Cassidy's like 100 years old, but they couldn't figure out how to air condition the rest of the district without literally generating a $250 million tax. We gotta pass a $250 million tax to air conditioned classrooms. Not ours, not our offices. And I asked them one time, I said, well, how come you're air conditioned? I said, why can't we do with the classrooms what we do with you? We put in a 220 plug and a window here. Well, we're here all year round. Well, they're not. So wouldn't that mean that we only have to run it 2 months a year, September and May? Of course, they called me a troublemaker, and people started posting my personal stuff up there, and you know, and I mean, I'll just be straight up with you. If Rita and I were fighting for you, read about some of the personal travail I went through, particularly after the end of my marriage. I was a mess. I fell apart. And I remember one time they called up and said, if you don't back up, we'll put all this stuff out. I said, I tell you what, send me a letter, I'll put it on the front page of my newspaper. I'm a publisher myself. You know, and I've written about it. You know, if you read some stuff about me, I probably already put it out there. And I told people, God knows, why do I care if you know? You know, some of this is instructive. But they still tried to attack me personally. But we just try to ask common sense questions. Just common sense questions like, why does it cost $60,000 to house a 15-year-old in corrections? Now, I heard that some families can support 2, possibly 3 adults and her brothers living in the basement, some kids and pets, and pay a mortgage and buy groceries and pay car notes off $60,000 a year. So why does it cost $60,000 to house a 15-year-old with 5 other 15-year-olds when it costs $31,032.30 to house a murderer in the Iowa State prison system?
We don't have capital punishment, that's why.
Or, well, but it's still $29,000 cheaper to house a rapist than a 15-year-old. I mean, it's still $29,000 cheaper. So, yes.
You have to provide the education for the 15-year-old.
Well, but it only costs $8,000 to $10,000 according to them to educate a 15-year-old. So if we said it costs as much to house a 15-year-old,
Yeah,
with
but these are probably special needs 15-year-olds if they're in prison.
well, ma'am, they couldn't explain the money when I asked them to write it down.